Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. And as we delve into this week's topic, a reminder that some of the content may be of a sensitive nature. Now, here's your host, Des Kennedy.
Hi, and welcome to Momentum. It's Des here, and this week we begin a special three-part series on relationships with Wayne and Janet. This week we'll be speaking with Wayne. Next week we'll speak with Janet. And then in the final week we'll chat to them both together. Wayne is a normal, everyday Aussie bloke who's got a great story of redemption in his relationship. I sat down with Wayne to talk about his life and faith journey, his relationship, and him turning into someone he'd never thought he'd be. I started out by asking Wayne what his life was like growing up.
So, I was born in Victoria. Parents we were a Christian family, Baptists, so long history of Baptists in our family, all Christians, uncles, aunties, everybody. So, grew up down in Western Victoria, a place called Warrnambool, beautiful place on the coast down there. And we moved to Queensland when I was 13 years old.
All right.
Parents had moved up, or had come up here quite a few times on holidays and decided they wanted to change of life. So we packed up the kids and family and we all moved to Queensland. We were the only family that we had up here was us, and started a new life on the Sunshine Coast. We moved to the Sunshine Coast, grew up there, had, a really great childhood. My parents were really strong Christians, as I said. We went to church morning and night on a Sunday. Parents were heavily involved in the church. Mum ran the girls' brigade. Mum and Dad ran the youth. Dad was a treasurer at the church. I think he was a deacon as well. So, heavily involved and grew up with that sort of Christian life as a teenager, all my life there. On the Sunshine Coast. And then, started working after finished school, worked in retail and then in retail management. And then with that type of job, you end up being transferred. So I left the Sunshine Coast, moved down to northern New South Wales.
So when you say northern New South Wales, where do you mean?
Lismore.
Oh, Lismore. Okay.
Lismore, northern New South Wales, yes. So met my first wife.
Wow.
There.
Was she in Lismore as well?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. We really clicked and fell in love. And at that stage, I'd sort of walked away for a little bit of church. I wasn't really practicing Christian, I don't believe. I wasn't going to church much. And not long after we did get married, we moved back to the Sunshine Coast, which is where I was from. And my wife also, she was searching, I think, as well, and decided to become a Christian as well.
Oh, cool.
So we did then get back into it and, attending church and everything. And then along came our daughters, two daughters. Life was pretty good. So we'd been married for about, it was probably about 13, 14 years at that stage. And my wife said to me that she felt like she was interested in relationships with women and not so much men. Wow. Which was a bit of a shock, I suppose, at first.
What about your self-esteem? Did it damage your self-esteem in going through that?
Not at that stage,
No?
It didn't.
Okay.
No. So this went on for a couple of years, I suppose, and then she eventually then found a partner, and we did eventually split up. That was really, really hard. When we did split up, I found that really difficult because I did love her,
Yes.
I really did love her, and but I could see she was tormented with this.
Yes.
And was difficult. But I sort of had to let that go. So we did split up.
Yeah.
And I moved out of the family home at the time. Tried to reconcile the marriage, but it didn't work.
No.
She then said, "No, I am gay. I'm a lesbian. I don't love you." We sort of had a fairly okay relationship where we would bring the girls backwards and forwards. Yeah. When I'd had 50% custody with my daughters, so we'd swap them over at the end of each week.
Because that's so important to maintain the relationship with your kids, even going through that, isn't it?
It is.
There's so many men who would be listening to this and they say, wow, it's so fortunate that Wayne was able to retain the relationship with his kid.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. You were able to do that.
Yeah. and it did sort of up until a certain time. It was okay. It wasn't ever great, but it was okay. I was in a church, a really great church here in the Gold Coast at the time, and one of a guy I got to know, an elderly guy, sort of said to me, "Wayne, it's about time I think you went and found a new wife." He could see I was, I needed that, I suppose, and was ready. I guess it was a couple of years later.
How did you take that?
I really trusted him. He was a great mentor. I'd spent some time with him, and sort of felt, enjoyed his company and his wisdom. So
cool.
And it wasn't as if I said, "All right, well now I'm going out." I just listened, and then
isn't it so important that men have around them men that they can trust?
Yes.
And I mean, it's a key thing in terms of men's ministry and men doing life and going through struggles in life, that they have not even mentors, but just good mates that they can trust and they can be open with and be prepared to be accountable to in terms of how they live their lives. So you obviously had this guy who was that for you, which is really cool.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. No, he was lovely guy. Yeah,
he wasn't a matchmaker.
No, he wasn't. No, no, he didn't run a business or anything on the side. No, he just, put into people's lives, I guess, which is really good.
Yes, that's great. Yeah.
I was part of the stewards team, the people that put people in the seats at church.
Oh, right, okay.
I joined that because I wanted to be involved, and I was really loving the church I was in. And I noticed this lady, this is a few months later, I noticed this lady come at church, and she seemed to come more at night than the day, but she was actually a different person. I wasn't sure who it was. Yeah. Sometimes she'd come dressed in all black, like a waitress black,
right,
or
okay.
and then other times she'd come in really, well dressed up as if she's, off to the races almost, all really beautiful and nice dresses and high heels and all that. And then other times she'd come a bit casual, like she'd just come off the beach. And I was actually confused. I didn't know it was the same person. And I asked a few people, I asked another friend, do you know who that lady is, that blonde lady that I pointed to her? And he said, no, I think she's new, And so I was just, I guess, intrigued by her look and her different looks that she seemed. I realised it was the same person, but because she had all these different looks, I wasn't sure. And I was a bit nervous to sort of say good day to her. And I think one night I was packing up out in the front car park, and we had a resources table out the front there, and she was looking at some resources, some, books and tapes and things, and I just said g'day to her. That was as much as I could do. I was a bit nervous, so I said, "Oh, g'day." And to be honest, I think Janet, who's my wife now, said, "I can't remember you saying that." So there you go. For me, it was a big deal, but for her, it was nothing. Yeah. And then a friend of mine invited me over for dinner one night, and I had my girls that week with me, being a single dad.
Yes.
And I didn't want to go. I was toing and froing backwards and forwards. Should I go or should I go? And in the end, I decided, oh, look, why not? It was a bit of a God battle. In the end, I know it was God telling me you should go. But I just didn't want to be around couples. Yes. When you're single, I think you just don't.
Yes, you don't fit in.
You don't fit in. Yeah. So anyway, I decided to go and packed my girls up, and we went to this Blake's place. And as we were walking up the stairs, we got to the top of the stairs. And lo and behold, is this woman I'd been eyeing off at church was there at this friend's house.
Wow.
Little did I know, she actually was sort of related to them.
Oh, really? Okay.
And hence this lady was my future wife at the time that I didn't know, Janet. Yeah. And so we met, said g'day. He'd invited me over to watch the AFL. It was Collingwood versus the Brisbane Lions, I think.
You even remember the game?
I remember the game. Yeah. And so we watched the game, and my daughters were playing, and then Janet, my future wife, then played table tennis downstairs with my daughters. They clicked, and
cool.
And I guess the rest is history. Yes. We went on dates and everything after that, and fell in love and got married about 10 months later.
Wow, that's pretty quick, actually.
Pretty quick. Yeah. Pretty quick.
That's good.
Yeah.
So here you were newly married in a new relationship, attending church. What happened after that? How did that sort of fall apart, or what were the drivers in that space?
Yeah. Look, we got married, went on a honeymoon, came back and moved into a new home. And probably within the first month, things just didn't didn't seem right. You know, I guess I felt like before we got married, I'd sorted out a lot of my issues that I had from a previous marriage. I went and got some counselling, you know, obviously dealing with a wife who'd become a lesbian. And, you know, at the time back then when my wife was a lesbian, we brought a lot of pornography into the house, lesbian pornography especially. So, you know, there's a lot of ties that come with that. And so I did a course and broke a lot of that off. So I felt like I was right and healed and etc. But I think what I hadn't dealt with was that deeper pain that was inside.
Yes.
During that time when my ex-wife and I split up was during the GFC.
Oh, right.
So we'd had some investments, we had a property, and I had some poor advice from a financial planner at the time, and it cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I guess that really was eating away at me.
Yes.
And then the other part that was probably hurting me also just as much was the fact I couldn't have my two daughters with me all the time.
Yes, because that's a painful situation.
Yeah. I was very, very close to both of them. You know, a lot of people say I'm a great dad. And, you know, my wife now, Janet, just thinks I'm a remarkable dad to my daughters. And that really hurt a lot to not have them all the time.
Yes. You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
If this program has highlighted something you'd like prayer for, we'd love to pray for you. Call 1-800-PRAY-FOR-ME. That's 1-800-772-936. It's a free call. Or text 0401 132 888.
You're listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. Find out more at momentumaustralia.org.
This is Des here, and we're continuing our chat with Wayne. We pick up the interview just as Wayne had begun a new life and marriage with Janet.
As I got married to Janet, my ex-wife, our relationship got worse. There was whether it was a jealousy from her or not, I'm not sure, but there just wasn't the relationship it was, and it was very difficult. Difficult for Janet, my new wife, as well,
and difficult for the girls, I'm sure, too.
Difficult for them as well. And look, at times I felt sort of stuck in the middle of it all, and I didn't know what to do. And so then, you know, as we got married, you know, Janet, my new wife, you know, she could tell that I was suffering, I guess, and she wanted to talk about that. And I suppose this is the other big thing, the difference of one wife to the other. My first wife, really, we didn't talk. We didn't communicate.
Yes, right.
I guess in theory we were almost like two blokes. We'd sit there on the couch, talk about our job, our day at work, what we're doing with the kids that day or that weekend, and we were going on holidays and watch TV and go to sleep.
Yes.
That was pretty much our life. We didn't talk deep about anything.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
But my new wife was the complete opposite.
Yes.
She was very intimate in her talking, wanted to get, you know, things sorted, wanted to talk things out.
Yes.
And I guess I'm a bit of when there's hurts in my heart, I don't want to talk about it as much. So I sort of rejected my first wife wanting to help me and pushed her away. And then the more I do that, the more I'd get angry. And because the hurts I hadn't dealt with were coming out and I didn't like it. So that caused a lot of anger in me, which swelled up to then be abuse back to my new wife, who was just really trying to help.
So how did that play out? What did that look like for you?
So look, for me, I abused her verbally nearly every day, or, you know, if not every day, every second or third day, to be honest, where to get away from the pain, I would call her names, I would swear at her. You know, I'm at church raising my hands, I'm a Christian man, and then at night the next day I'm swearing or abusing her and telling her to go away because I didn't want to deal with it. And she would always try and fix it. You know, what my wife is the most tenacious, never give up person I've ever met. And she would just want to fix it. And she would want to fix it by talking and doing it.
Because she loved you so much.
She loved me so much, you know, and she could see the pain, but I didn't want to. So, I would physically abuse her by yelling at her, calling her names, saying the marriage was over, calling her nutbag, you know, mental case, all these types of terrible phrases just to get rid of her from talking. And then what I would do is say the marriage is over, I'd pack my bags and I'd drive off and I'd go for days. and all this while I'm working, and no one at work knew what I was doing. Kept it all quiet.
So was it in terms of what you thought about your marriage? Did you think at all about what the impact it was having on her? Or were you so focused on your anger and your frustration? And
I would feel the impact on her hours or days later, not at the time.
Okay.
It's like you're in this rage, and all you want to do is get rid of the pain. The only way to do it is blurb it out and run.
What advice would you give men in that space?
As you're doing it, what I learned earlier on is that I didn't know how to control it.
Yes.
So if you are in that particular, and you are, what I sort of, and I've helped some men recently, is if you get to that point, that is not acceptable.
Yes. That's good.
And it's understanding that you are never to yell at any person. You're never to yell and swear and carry on and raise your hands. I never ever intentionally hit my wife, but I would push her away because she would want to come near me to help me and I would push her. So I'd grab, I'd never punch her, but my hand would push her away, and to the point where sometimes I pushed her and she would fall over.
Wow.
So was it physical? Yes, it was.
Yes.
Was there punching and hitting her? No, never. But there was punching walls.
Yes.
It's understanding that it is not acceptable.
Yes. So what happened next in your story?
So then, through lots of counselling, but, I'd come good, and we'd even had a few periods there where for 6 months it wasn't too bad. Yeah. It was still there, though. It was never fixed. And we, I'd do some of the things that we learned in counselling, but the problem is I never, ever owned it was really my fault.
Okay. That's a key point.
As good as what some of the counselling was that we had,
yes,
we'd quite often come out of those counselling, and yes, I'd hear the things that I needed to do, but I'd also hear the things that they'd tell my wife to do.
Yes,
which there was some parts in it, and she'll probably talk about that there were some parts in it that she learnt to do differently as well. But I was always, I'll do my bit, but she's got to do her bit. And then when she doesn't, I'll. So I really never owned what I had to do.
The solution is actually really quite simple. It's owning your stuff and being held accountable for your stuff and being committed to not behaving that way.
Correct. Yeah, it is. It is. We have responsibility as men.
Yes.
There's all these movements around about men and that, and there's I think men we are masculine, we're made that way, but we also need to have a soft side. Jesus had a soft side. Yes. Look at the way he touched so many women's lives in the Bible.
Yes, exactly.
And I think we need to acknowledge that. We need to understand what that means. We need to understand that soft side that we need to be for our wives.
Yes.
What I've learnt with my wife now, who's an incredible lady who has got, we go to quite a big church, and we're on the pastoral care team, we're on the welcome team there. We help with marriages, but what I see with my wife is she's so soft and gentle. The Holy Spirit works in her that there can be someone after a service, just crying in the corner because it's really affected them. And for some reason, God puts it on her heart, and she can just sense those people out. And I go over and, 2 minutes after the service finished, here's my wife on her knees over there holding a woman who's bawling her eyes out about something, and that's what I've been given from God, this amazing, soft, gentle lady who, when I got to understand what that's like, has helped me so much in my life.
No, for sure.
And she never gave up. She got on her knees. There's a great movie called The War Room.
Yes, great movie.
And it's this woman who prays constantly and doesn't give up. And they could have written the book about my wife. That's what she did. She never gave up on me.
What other advice would you give men?
Your marriage can be really good.
Yes.
It can be the best if you want to put in. And you've got to listen. You've got to understand your wife. It's really simple stuff, but you've got to, like a car, you've got to get services all the time. You've got to do that with your marriage as well. So I would say, if you're not happy, ask those questions why, and go and seek help. Go and find somebody that's you trust. You are put together for a reason. God made you two for a reason. Figure that out and go and do some work on it.
This is Momentum with Tim and Des, and this week we've been speaking with Wayne. Tune in next week as we get a different perspective from Wayne's wife, Janet.
You've been listening to Momentum, a show that helps men succeed in life. For more information or to hear this week's show again, go to momentumaustralia.org. You can also access a whole range of resources to help you on your journey and to get in touch with the team at momentumaustralia.org.